Yeah guys, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be talking about how to look for the LCM, how to find the LCM, and we're also going to talk about special case of looking for the LCM of prime numbers and even numbers. So the first thing you need to understand is, why do we need to learn this concept of looking for LCM of numbers? Well, the reason is because when you are dealing with addition and subtraction of fractions, you will make use of this knowledge in order to look for the common denominator of the fractions. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you in full details how you can look for the LCM of numbers. So firstly, let's start by explaining what is going on in the table first. In this table, we have 3, 5, and 7, which are the numbers we want to look for the LCM of. Anything we are using to divide all these numbers, we are going to put it on the first column. So this is the first column, and that's why we're going to put whatever we're using to divide all these numbers. Now, the number that is here will give you the numbers on the second row, not on the division row, not on the division column, but on the second row, excluding the division column. The number that is here will give you what is on the third row. The number that is on the second row will give you the numbers or the values on the third row, while the numbers on the third row, the number on the third row will give you the numbers on the fourth row. That's what I want to explain first. So now let's go. How do you really solve, how do you really look for the LCM of numbers? What you need to do is, you have 3, 5, and 7. You have to look for any number that can go in either 3, 5, or 7, or 3 and 5, 3 or 7, or even the whole of the numbers. So if there's any number that can divide 3, that can divide 5, that can divide 7, that's the number that will be here. If there's any number that can divide 3 and 5, or 3 and any other number, or 7 and any other number, that is the number that will be here. So, but for this case, we have prime numbers, and one quick tip is that if you have prime numbers and whenever you have prime numbers, all you just need to do is multiply the whole of that number, because of nothing can go in prime numbers, it can only be divisible by itself and 1, and that's why you see that everything that is here is the same thing as what is here. So here we have 3 in 3 will give you 1, 3 in 5 cannot go, 3 in 5 cannot go. So what are we going to do? We are going to do what? We are going to write 5 back, just like you can see there. 3 in 5 cannot go, so we write 5 back. 3 in 7 cannot go, so we write 7 back. Now we come to the next line. We have 1, 5, and 7. What can go in 1, 5, and 7? There is nothing that can go in 1, 5, and 7. The only thing that can go here is 5. 5 can divide 5. So we say what? 5. 1 divided by 5. 1 cannot divide 5 evenly. So we write 1 back. 5 divided by 5. That will give you 1. 7 cannot be divided by 5. So we write 7 back. Now we go to the next line. We have 1, 1, 7. We know there's something that can divide 1, 1, and divide 7, except from 7. So 1 in 7, or 1 divided by 7 will give you 1, because it cannot divide it evenly. 1 divided by 7 again will give you 1. 7 divided by 7 will give you 1. So you keep on dividing until the whole of this number, until the whole of this base is 1. Then you do what? You multiply 3 times 5 times 7, which is exactly what we are doing here. 3 times 5 times 7, and that is equals to 105. And this is the LCM, or the common denominator, if you are trying to add or subtract a fraction. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, we have 2, 4, and 6. So how do you look for this one? Same way, you put all your numbers in you put all your numbers in the table, 2, 4, and 6. This column, the first column will be for whatever you are putting to divide everything on the first row. The first column will be what you are putting to divide the numbers you are given. So this is what we have, 2, 4, and 6. Now you can see that here 2 can go in 2, 2 can go in 4, and 2 can go in 6. So we use 2. We don't use what? 4. And then we now say 4 divided by 2. No, we have to start from the smallest number. So we use what? 2, because 2 is the smallest number that can divide through all of this. Had it mean there is no number that can divide through all of this, then it would have been this same procedure we are going to follow. But in this case, that's not what we are going to do. 2 into, that will give you 1. 4 divided by 2, that will give you what? 2. 6 divided by 2, that will give you 3. 1 divided by 2 is cannot go, so you write 1 back. 2 divided by 2, 1. 3 divided by 2 cannot go evenly, so you write what? 3 back. 3 divided by 1 divided by 3, that will give you what? 1, because it cannot go evenly. 1 divided by 3 again, it will give you 1. It cannot go evenly. And 3 divided by 3, that will give you 1. All you need to do next is what? Multiply the whole of this, and you get what? 12. So the LCM is what? 12, which is also the common denominator. So let's continue with this next example. Let's look at number 3 now. So number 3, we have what? 3, 4, and 7. Number 3, we have what? 3, 4, and 7. Now, like I said previously, we have to put that, we have 2, 4, and 7. Sorry. We have to put that number in this what? In this part of the table, the first row of the table, excluding what? The first column. We put it in the first row, excluding the first column. We don't put anything on the first column except from the number that is dividing what? The numbers that we are given. So we have 2, 4, and 6, and 12. Now, whenever you see that we have 2, 4, and 12, and as you can see, 2 can go in 4, and 4 can also go in 12. You don't need to stress yourself if you are pressed for time. All you just need to know is that what? The bigger number will be what? The LCM. Here we have 2, 4, and 12. 4 can be divided by 2, and 12 can be divided by 4. So our answer is just what? 4. But let's still solve it. Now we have to look for what can go in 2, 4, and 12, or any of these numbers, even if it's only 1 or more. So we have what? 2 can go. 2 in 2 will give you 1. 4 divided by 2 will give you 2. 12 divided by 2 will give you 6. 1 divided by 2 cannot go, so we write our 1 back. Cannot go evenly, so we write the number back. 2 divided by 2, that will give you 1. 6 divided by 2, that will give you 3. 1 divided, what can go in all this number? We have 1, 1, 3. Only 3 can go. So we have 1 divided by 3 cannot go evenly, so we write 1 back. 1 divided by 3 again, we write 1 back. 3 divided by 3, that will give you what? 1. By the time you multiply everything on your division column, then you are going to get what? 12. Number 4, we have what? 20, 30, and 40. We put those numbers here. And whenever you see that we have big numbers like this, especially when they are whole numbers with 0, that is numbers like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you first want to break them down into smaller numbers. So what can we do here? We can just use what? 10 to divide, rather than using 2, and then we now get what? 10, 15, and 20. We can just use 10 to break everything down into the smallest form. So here we're going to have what? 2, 3, and 4. Because we use 10 to divide. 20 divided by 10, that will give you 2. 30 divided by 10, that will give you 3. 40 divided by 10, that will give you 4. Now we have what? 2, 3, and 4. We know that there is nothing that can go in 2, 3, and 4, but there is something that can go in 2 and 4, and that is 2. So we're going to say 2 divided by 2, that will give you 1. 3 divided by 2 is impossible, so we write what? 3 back. 4 divided by 2, that will give you 2. Now we have 1, 3, and 2. 1 divided by 2, that will give you what? 1, because of it cannot go evenly. 3 divided by 2, that will give you 3. 2 divided by 2, that will give you what? 1. So we have 1, 3, 1. 1 divided by 3, that will give you what? 1. 3 divided by 3, that will give you 1. And 1 divided by 3, that will give you what? 1. So now you just need to multiply everything on division what? On the division column. So we are going to have 10 times 2 times 2 times 3. That will give you what? 10 times 2 times 2 times 3, which is equals to what? 120. Let's go to our next example. Here we have what? 18, 12, and 30. We can put our numbers in the what? First row, excluding the what? First column. So now we put what we are going to use to divide it in the first what? In the first colon. So here we are going to use what? 2. Now 18 divided by 2, that will give what? 9. 12 divided by 2, that will give you 6. 30 divided by 2, that will give you 15. Now looking at this place, we have 9, 6 and 15. We know that 3 can go in the whole of this number. So what? 3, 9 divided by 3, that will give you what? 3. 6 divided by 3, that will give you 2. 15 divided by 3, that will give you 5. Here we have what? 3, 2 and 5. And if you look at all these numbers, you see that they are all prime numbers. So whenever you are simplifying and you've gotten to the what? Prime level. The prime level is when they are all prime numbers. So you can just simply put all the whole number here as what? Prime number. Because as you can see here, we have what? 3 in 3, that will give you 1. So we write everything back again. 2 and 5. Then we are using the same 2 because of there's nothing that can go again. So we are using 2. So we have what? 1, 1 and 5. Then we use 1 back. So you can see that everything here is the same thing as everything here. So it's not necessary that it's every time they give you prime number before you can make use of that technique. Immediately you divide the number you are giving and you can see that everything you have are what? Prime numbers. So you can just what? Include them into this row in order to make your work what? Faster and easier. But to avoid confusion, you have to practice before you can make use of this shortcut I'm telling you. But in order to avoid confusion, it's better you know the basic things, which is what I've just explained in this video. So now you multiply everything on division column and you're going to have what? 2, 3, 3, 3, 3 and 5. If you multiply everything, you're going to get 180 as your what? LCM. Now we are going to proceed to discussing how to do what? How to add and subtract fractions using this knowledge that we've just gotten. That is the knowledge of LCM. I'm going to explain to you how you add and subtract fractions. Now let's talk about adding and subtracting fractions. So say for example you are given a fraction, you are given fractions like this: 1 over 18 plus 3 over 14 minus 7 over 15. You are given fractions like this. How do you add and subtract them without using a calculator? Now, even if you can use a calculator, I know some people think it's needless or pointless to learn how to add this since you can just use a calculator, but it's not every time you'll be able to use a calculator, because sometimes you have equations that will be in the form of fractions and you have to be able to do what? Add those equations together and what? Simplify them in order to solve. We are still going to deal with those kind of problems, but let's focus on the basics here because this is the nitty-gritty of everything, of all those complex equations that are going to see. Once you can understand this concept, then you can add and subtract any equation in as much as they have what? A single denominator. Even if they have multiple denominators, we are still going to dive into what? Dealing with those kind of problems. But here, let's talk about this one. We have what? 18, 14 and 15. What do you do? What you need to do is what? Create your column, your table as usual, 18, 14 and 15. You look for any number that can divide either one of this set of number or 2 or more, or any number that can divide what? At least one of the number. That means it can divide one of the number, 2 of the number, or even 3 of, or the whole numbers that are given. So now we have what? We know that 2 can go in 18 and 2 can go in 14. 18 divided by 2, that will give you 9. 14 divided by 2, that will give you 7. 15 divided by 2 is impossible, so we write what? 15 back. 9 divided by 3, that will give you what? 3, since we have 9, 7 and 15. And we know that nothing can go in 9 and 7, but something can go in 9 and what? 15. So we have what? 3 divided by 9. 9 divided by 3, that will give you what? 3. 7 divided by 3, you write 7 back because it cannot go evenly. 15 divided by 3, that will give you what? 5. Now, our technique, our method, you can see that here we have what? 3, 7 and 5, which are all prime numbers. So we just put them back into the what? Division column. And then we can multiply everything together to get our LCM. It's important to understand this method, that once you are dividing and you see that you've gotten to what? Prime numbers already. All these ones are prime numbers. So you just put them back into what? The division column. So now what are we going to do? We put them back. 2 times 3 times 3 times 7 times 5, which is simply multiplying everything on the division column, and then we are going to get what? 630. So this is the what? Common denominator. That means this is what will be on the base. And now you are going to see how we make use of this number, because this number is very, very important in doing what? The addition and subtraction. So once we have what? 630, we say what? 630 divided by what? The first denominator of the first fraction, or the denominator of the first fraction. So once we say 630 divided by 18, we are going to get what? 35. We are going to say 630 divided by what? The denominator of the second fraction. We are going to get what? 630 divided by 14. So what are we going to do? We can just use our what? We can use our table. We know that 7 times 2 will give you 14. So what are we going to be left with? 3 times 3 times 5. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 5 will give you 45. 45 times 3, that will give you what? 135. So I'm using my table because I don't have calculator with me, and I don't want to, and it's also important to know how to use a table so you don't keep pressing calculator all the time. If you have what? 15, now we are going to use what? The denominator of what? The third fraction to divide what? The LCM. So we are going to have 630 divided by 15. All you need to do is what? Come to your table. 3 times 5 will give you 15. So you removed any number that can give you 15, you remove them out. So we are going to be left with what? 3, 7, and 2. So 7 times 2 will give you 14. 14 times 3, that will give you what? Let me say 3 times 4, 12, 42. Let me do that again. We have what? 7 times 3, that will give you 21. 21 times 2, that will give you what? 42. So I'm going to say 42 times what? 7, that will give you what? Negative 294. It's not really going to give you a negative number, but it's because of now we are going to just what? Put the sign back in place. So we are going to what? Where there is plus sign in the middle of two numbers, that same plus sign will be there. There's minus sign in the middle of these two fractions, that same minus sign will be what? Where it's supposed to be at the numerator. When you add all of this together using your calculator, you are going to get what? Negative 124 over 630, which you can still break down, but I left it this way. So this is the way you can, because if I break it down now, you might not understand how we got to that point. But once you add this one, 135 plus 35, that will give you what? 170 minus 170 minus 294, that will give you what? Minus 124. Because 170 minus 294, 294 is greater than 170, so we have what? Negative number 124 over 630. You can break this down into a simpler fraction, but if you leave it like this, this is the basic way you can understand how to do what? Add and subtract fractions. We are still going to deal with more examples so you can get the concept properly. So the first thing you need to do, let me highlight all the important procedures, is what? You do what? You put the number of the denominator of the fractions, you put it into your table, you solve the table like I've explained, just like I've explained. After solving a table, you look for the LCM, which is what? 630 in this case. Now you will now start using what? The denominator to divide what? The LCM. The denominator of each fraction to divide the LCM. Whatever you get, you use it to multiply what? The numerator of that fraction. We are going to use the denominator of the third fraction to divide what? The LCM, which gave us, I think, 42. Then we multiply that by the what? Numerator of that fraction. So that is basically how you add and subtract what?